Hey everybody, welcome to the Mana Leak. I'm John as always, and it's Sunday. That means it's time for the Black Kaladesh set review. We're going to go through every single card in Kaladesh that is black and discuss how it would be in a limited environment, of course. Sealed and draft, we're not talking about constructed. For other disclaimers, make sure that you do watch the white set review. Also, why wouldn't you watch the white set review? Why would you watch one color and not the others? Watch them all. They are up on my channel, of course. But we're going to jump right on into the first card. Up first is Aetherborn Marauder. Aetherborn Marauder is 3 and a black for a creature, Aetherborn Rogue at uncommon. It's a 2/2, it has flying, it has lifelink, and when Aetherborn Marauder enters the battlefield, move any number of +1/+1 counters from other permanents you control onto Aetherborn Marauder. As a 2/2 lifelinking flyer for 4, this is probably playable at its base case, but if you have any amount of fabricate or counter shenanigans going on in your deck, then you can make this a 3/3 or higher. You're in really good shape. Feels like a relatively high pick to me, and then head into that strategy. I'd be pretty happy giving this a B-. Requiring other things to be going on to make this great does hold it back slightly, of course, but I'm pretty happy to play this and build around it, so B- for Aetherborn Marauder. Up next is Ambitious Aetherborn. Man, why isn't it Aether? Anyways, it's 4 and a black for a creature, Aetherborn Artificer at common. It's a 4/3 with Fabricate 1. Seems a little bit weak, to be honest. A 5/4 for 5 is not impressive, and a 4/3 with a 1/1 for 5 isn't terribly impressive either. This is one of those cards that you'll play in sealed because it's there and you have to, and in drafts that don't necessarily go exactly your way, you might play this, but all other situations, this will be a solid cut and a pretty solid C-. Yeah, you're going to want Fabricate for a lot of the cards in black. As you'll see later, there is a strong push for having artifacts in black, but you want them way before turn 5. So Ambitious Aetherborn is going to be a C- for me. Up next is Demon of Dark Schemes. Demon of Dark Schemes is a 3 black creature demon at Mythic. It's a 5/5. It has flying, and when Demon of Dark Schemes enters the battlefield, all other creatures get -2/-2 until end of turn. But there's more. Whenever another creature dies, you get an energy counter. And there's still more. 2 and a black, pay 4 energy, put target creature card from a graveyard onto the battlefield under your control tapped. This seems crazy. The triple black mana means you're obviously never splashing for this, and you still, even if you're in black, you want to make sure you are in black. And 6 mana is definitely a lot, but this could never possibly cost less. It's just insane. A 5/5 flyer that will almost definitely kill a number of creatures, netting you some energy, and then for 4 energy, getting back whatever dead creature you want from any graveyard. I'm sold. The downside of this is that you definitely just cannot play it if you are not solidly black. I'm talking like 10 swamps, 7 other things. Yeah, but if you first pick it, of course, you can make sure you end up there, and you should be first picking this every single time you see it. Solid A, just seems really good. Just please don't put this in a weekly black deck. If you have less than 10 swamps, think twice. But solid A. Up next is Dhund Operative. Dhund Operative is 1 and a black for a creature, human rogue at common. It's a 2/2, and it says as long as you control an artifact, Dhund Operative gets +1/+0 and has Death Touch. Yeah, this is what I was talking about. These are a series of black creatures that are honestly totally fine on their own. This is a 2/2 for 2. You'll play this. You won't be excited about it. You won't waste a pick on it, but you'll play it generally when you have it. But it's got an upside if you have an artifact, and thankfully Fabricate is in black. Yeah, 3/2 with Death Touch is super solid, and hopefully it's going to be that a rather solid amount of time. I'm willing to go with a very solid pure C+ on Dhund Operative. I don't think it's going to be too hard to have an artifact when you're in black, and boy, does there look to be a pretty solid black-white kind of artifacty tokens, artifact matters, go wide kind of deck that I'm really excited to give a shot with. But yeah, Dhund Operative, she seems like a solid C+. Next up is a reprint, Diabolic Tutor. Diabolic Tutor is 2 black for a sorcery at uncommon. Search your library for a card and put that card into your hand. Then shuffle your library. I have played in limited formats that have Diabolic Tutor, and it's just never good. And tutors in general just aren't that great in limited, unless we're talking like original demonic tutor. I'm sure there'll be times where it gets you the removal spell you need, or the creature you need, or whatever it is that you need. But of course, the spell needs to be in your library. If you've already drawn it, it's in your hand. If you've already cast it, it's in your graveyard, then this card doesn't get you what you need and does way less. It's hard to cast with the double black. It's pricey, it's 4 mana, which means you're probably not casting the spell that you went and got. When you cast Diabolic Tutor, it's going to take you another turn to actually get there. It just ultimately never really does enough, and it really should live in your sideboard basically forever. I'm out. D-, Diabolic Tutor, nope. Up next is Die Young. Die Young is 1 and a black for a sorcery at common. Choose target creature. You get 2 energy counters. Then you may pay any amount of energy. The creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn for each energy paid this way. This is decent enough removal. At a minimum, it's a -2/-2 spell for 2 black mana at sorcery speed, which is not great, but still fine. You'd play that in basically every deck. That's called Deadweight, except Deadweight was an enchantment and 1 more mana and slightly different, but same ultimate effect most of the time. Sometimes getting to hit something bigger if you've got a stockpile of energy, or getting to kill an X1 and, pocket the extra energy for later, great. It's probably not a first pick, I don't think, unless the rare in your pack is bad and there's no unconditional removal in the pack, then I'd be happy to first pick it. But I do think it is kind of the top third of picks and a very solid second or third pick for sure. Very happy with Die Young. I'm willing to give that a straight up B-. Dukara Scavenger is up next. Dukara Scavenger is 5 and a black for a creature Crocodile at common. It's a 4/6, and when Dukara Scavenger enters the battlefield, you may put target artifact or creature card from your graveyard on top of your library. This just seems way too expensive for me. If it went to hand as opposed to top of your library, then we could maybe compare this to a Gravedigger or a Baloth Null, both creatures in older formats that take something from your graveyard to your hand. But top of your library, way too slow, way too expensive, just not what I'm looking for. It's kind of one of those, quote-unquote, if you're desperate for a top end here, but you really shouldn't have gotten to this point in a draft anyways, you can take this kind of card, which is really a pure C-. Cut this often. If you're desperate for a top end creature and you somehow screwed up, here you go, but generally no, cut this hard, C-. Up next is Eliminate the Competition. Eliminate the Competition is 4 and a black for a sorcery at rare. As an additional cost to cast Eliminate the Competition, sacrifice X creatures. What does it do? Destroys X target creatures. This seems like it could be insane in a wide strategy, which it seems like Black-White is probably going to want to do. That being said, this card does stone nothing when you're behind with an empty board. That, plus the casting cost, plus the sorcery speed, is going to cap this card's rating. I'm not really willing to go higher than a B- on this. You can first pick it and build around it, I think. But don't try to force this into just any old black deck. Don't put this in a black control deck. Control-y decks don't have a ton of creatures to be sacrificing to blow up the opponent's team. But if you have a bunch of servos, if you're Black-White, I think this thing could be insane. Eliminate the Competition, B- because of the problems that it certainly has in many decks. But in that right deck, things are going to go crazy. B-, Eliminate the Competition. Up next is Embrawl Bruiser. Embrawl Bruiser is 1 and a black for a creature human warrior at uncommon. It's a 3/1, and Embrawl Bruiser enters the battlefield tapped, and Embrawl Bruiser has menace as long as you control an artifact. If you know anything about me, you know that I really like 3/1s for 2. It enters tapped, who cares? I'm not blocking with this thing anyways. Then, if I have an artifact, it becomes harder to block because it has menace. I'm sold. Not sold as in this card's an amazing pick, don't pick this first or anything, but sold as in I'll always play this, but still pick it sort of mid-packish. It's a C+ to me, probably a slight bias there because I love 3/1s for 2, but definitely nothing lower than a C. This just seems solid. You're going to have artifacts in black. You're going to have artifacts in Kaladesh, and you're going to have artifacts in black, and as I've said, black-white, which might be the color combination I most want to try. You're going to have servos kicking around. You're going to have artifacts. So this will have menace. So C+ for me for Embrawl Bruiser. Essence Extraction is up next. Essence Extraction is 1 black for an instant at uncommon. Essence Extraction deals 3 damage to target creature and you gain 3 life. Seems like just another great piece of black removal. It's instant speed, it kills X3s, it gains you 3 life, it can kill larger things post-combat, etc. The double black hurts, so, you're not going to just splash this in any old deck. You're going to want to make sure that you are black. It's not like the demon, it's not triple black or anything. But yeah, I feel like the black definitely makes this a slightly lower pick than it would otherwise be, but barely so. It seems like it's just a straight up B- to me. I'll pick this pretty readily and sometimes even first pick. I won't pick it over conditional removal and never over bombs, but I'll be pretty happy with this in kind of the top third of my picks. So solid B- for me. Up next is Fortuitous Find. Fortuitous Find is 2 and a black for a sorcery at common. Choose one or both. Return target artifact card from your graveyard to your hand, and return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. If you know that I like 3/1s for 2, you probably also know that I really don't care about returning creatures from my graveyard to my hand. Especially not at sorcery speed, especially not for 3 mana, even if I can get a couple of them back because it's artifact, creature, and creature, or I can get a random artifact back with the creature, I'm still not really sold on this card. I tend to cut these cards really reliably and only play them in really slow decks, a little bit more often in sealed, but I don't ever go out of my way to get one of these cards. I find them way too slow and just rarely worth it. I'll play this and grade this a bit lower than it probably should be, just because that's how I view these cards. Some people definitely view them slightly higher, but not too much higher. I'm going to start at a C- on them. For the average player, for the player who actually likes these, it's probably more like a C, but for me, C-. Foundry Screecher is next. It's 2 and a black for a creature bat at common. It's a 2/1 flyer, and Foundry Screecher gets +1/+0 as long as you control an artifact. It's another of this series of black cards, black creatures that really want you to have just one artifact. Yeah, I've said it before, but I'm really excited about this black-white Fabricate deck that feels like it could really be a thing. This, again, like the Dhund Operative, is a solid card that you'll play anyways. You might cut it if you have better cards, but you'd play it anyways. Obviously worse than a Windrake, but with that artifact, it becomes a solid threat. It becomes a 3/1 flyer. Dies to Thopters, so keep that in mind, but still just seems like a totally legitimate mid-pack C+. Up next is Fretwork Colony. Fretwork Colony is 1 black for a 1/1 creature insected uncommon. Fretwork Colony can't block. At the beginning of your upkeep, put a +1/+1 counter on Fretwork Colony, and you lose 1 life. I've already heard people dreaming about how just gigantic this can get, but trust me, it's just not going to get there. A 2/2 on turn 3, a 3/3 on turn 4. It's just always going to be a turn behind where you want it to be until it gets really gigantic, at which point, who cares if your 10/10 is on turn 10 or turn 11. But at that point, you're going to have lost a lot of life. It can't block, so you'd better hope that you're backing it up, or else you're going to be losing even more life. And you just flat out cannot play this card later in the game if you've been taking some damage, because it'll just kill yourself. Not only that, there is pacifism and sleep paralysis style effects in this format. So somebody could just throw that on this, you'll keep getting those counters, and you'll keep losing a life, and you will just lose that game. I feel like this is an amazingly built trap card, and it's going to catch a lot of people. I'm going to go hard into unplayable status here and give it a D. I don't think you should ever play this card. I think it is flat out a trap. D. Up next is Gonti, Lord of Luxury. Gonti is a 2 black legendary creature, Aetherborn Rogue at rare. He's a 2/3, he's got Death Touch, and when Gonti, Lord of Luxury, enters the battlefield, look at the top 4 cards of target opponent's library. Exile one of them face down. Then put the rest on the bottom of that library in a random order. For as long as that card remains exiled, you may look at it, you may cast it, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any type to cast it. This is really cool. A 4 mana 2/3 Death Touch is already not good, but you'd play it if you had to. It's kind of spidery almost. It feels like the spiders that we'll often get, although they have reach, and this guy doesn't have reach. Yeah, I'll trade the reach that a spider would usually have for being able to yoink a card that my opponent doesn't know what it is, by the way. I get to look at it and put it face down, and I get to look at it. They don't get to look at it. Note that it does say cast, so if you do hit 4 lands on top of your opponent's library, you do whiff. You're just not playing them. But still, it's likely you'll hit at least something, be it a combat trick or a 2/2 or something, and maybe, just maybe, you hit their bomb. I don't think this guy is quite a bomb because it is just a 2/3, and so it's dependent on what you do randomly get off your opponent's library. But I do think it is still pretty solid. Probably not first pickable against removal, but beyond that, I'd be really happy to have this guy, and I'll be honest, first few weeks, I'm going to first pick him over removal. But yeah, I'm going to go with a B- on Gonti. Oh, I can't wait to give it a try. I really want to give him a try. Up next is Harsh Scrutiny. Harsh Scrutiny is a single black mana for a sorcery at uncommon. Target opponent reveals his or her land. You choose a card from it. That player discards that card. Scry 1. This is pretty unplayable. These effects are just awful and limited, though no matter how many times I tell people that, they still play them. And I'm still happy to have to reveal my hand to somebody when they waste a card slot in a turn on playing something like this. Sure, sometimes it hits, and you get to 1-for-1 them, except of course your opponent didn't spend any resources on the card they're discarding, so it's kind of like you're 1 for 0.5ing them or something. But then this misses, and all you get to do is kind of look at their hand and go, oh, alright. At least with this one you get to scry, so it's probably ever so slightly better than Despise, which was this card minus scry. But I'm totally out on this. Don't play it. I'll give it a D+ because it's better than Despise, but still, don't play it. Up next is Lawless Broker. Lawless Broker is 2 and a black for a creature Aetherborn Rogue at common. It's a 3/2. When Lawless Broker dies, put a +1/+1 counter on target creature you control. So a 3/2 for 3 that puts a counter on something when it dies, sign me up. It seems like a pretty easy auto-include to me, but, you know, in no way, shape, or form an amazing auto-include. It's just kind of your usual mid-pack, hey, I'm in black, and here's a black card, and there's nothing great otherwise, but I'll play this. The fact that counters can matter for things like Aetherborn Marauder help this out a little bit as well. Ultimately, this is just like slightly better than your usual 3/2 for 3, so seems like a solid C+ to me. I'll play it most of the time, rarely cut it, but never really write home about it. Up next is Live Fast, the companion card to Die Young. Live Fast is 2 and a black for a sorcery at common. You draw 2 cards, lose 2 life, and you get 2 energy. So this, of course, is the Succumb to Temptation or Sign in Blood or etc. card of the set. The draw 2, pay 2 life thingy. Yeah, so instead of getting to scry like you do with Read the Bones, or instead of being instant speed like it was with Succumb to Temptation, in this case you get 2 energy. Assuming you have outlets for it, this seems totally solid to me. It's not a super high pick, but relatively playable. If you don't have outlets, then it becomes much worse for sure. If this format is as super fast as people are saying, and I don't buy it. I don't buy the idea of this format being super fast. It'll be faster than Eldritch Moon, but that's honestly not saying that much. But yeah, if this format is relatively fast, this card will drop in playability. But if you can in any way be mid-rangey to control-y, this card will be pretty solid. I'm going to start with it as C+. I usually like this effect, and I will probably keep it there unless it turns out that it is super blisteringly fast. But I'm not expecting that to start. Lost Legacy is next. Lost Legacy is a 1 black sorcery at rare. Name a non-artifact, non-land card. Search target player's graveyard, hand, and library for any number of cards with that name and exile them. That player shuffles his or her library, then draws a card for each card exiled from hand this way. Absolutely no. Absolutely no. This type of card is an F in Limited Always, 100% of the time. People just don't have multiple copies of cards that are worth hitting with this. And sure, maybe you really don't want to play against that Chandra that you know your opponent has. So you put this in, all ready to name Chandra when you play this, and then they play Chandra first. And then this does nothing for you. Or you name Chandra and haha, you ripped it out of their library and it was on the bottom, so it didn't matter anyways. Yeah, this is just terrible. And the fact that this doesn't hit artifacts and your opponent gets to draw a card off of it, it's a hard F-. Don't ever play this card. It should be a last pick unless you're drafting it for constructed or something just to add to your collection. But as far as playing it, as far as picking it for limited, F-. Up next is Make Obsolete. Make Obsolete is 2 and a black for an instant at uncommon creatures your opponents control. Get -1/-1 until end of turn. Yeah, this being instant speed saves it from being a sideboard card. Yes, with Fabricate there will be some servos, but I don't know. I find people will frequently look at a new set and they'll be like, whoa, Fabricate, there's going to be servos everywhere in every match. And I don't think that's true. If you're playing against black-white, if you're playing against some builds of green, yeah, there might be some servos kicking around. But if there were servos everywhere, then this card would be insane, and then people would not choose to make servos. They would put counters on, and then this card would not be good, and it would be a cycle. I think people just overestimate how frequently mechanics will appear. But that being said, there will be some servos kicking around, and there will be some matchups where this just becomes insane because there will be a bunch of servos there. But being instant speed does save this from being a sideboard card for me because, yes, maybe you get lucky and blow out the servo deck, but in addition to that, you can cause just crazy blowouts with combat by just blanketing -1/-1 across your opponent's team, and suddenly what was potentially, some trades and some unfavorable chump blocks becomes favorable trades or just flat out killing your opponent's attackers and or blockers because it's instant speed. Being -1/-1 definitely has a low ceiling, so I won't go any higher than C+, C+ here. But yeah, that instant speed, boy, that saved this card. If this was sorcery speed, this would be like a D-. Yeah, C+ for Make Obsolete. Up next is Marionette Master. Marionette Master is 4 black for a creature human artificer at rare. It's a 1/3. It has Fabricate 3. And whenever an artifact you control is put into a graveyard from the battlefield, target opponent loses life equal to Marionette Master's power. This card really fights against itself. It wants to make 3 servos so that they'll die and make your opponent lose life, but if you do that, they're only going to be losing 1 life. I have a feeling that this combined with the 6 mana is going to knock this card way down to kind of like a mid-pack pick. If you have other ways of going wide with servos or other way of having things hit the graveyard, then this could be alright, but that 6 mana and double black is still going to be iffy. A 4/6 really doesn't do enough, so you're absolutely going to need those servos to throw under the bus, or other artifacts to sack somehow. Yeah, this card does just fight against itself, and it's expensive at that. So as cool as I want this to be, I think I'm going to have to keep it at a C+. I think you pick a lot of things over this. I think you... No, I won't even say that you always play this if you do end up with it. I'm going to go with a C+. I think it requires a specific build, and I think you do need to be careful about how highly you rate Marionette Master. Up next is Maulfist Squad. Maulfist Squad is 3 and a black for a creature human artificer at common. It's a 3/1, it's got Menace, and Fabricate 1. I like 3/1s for 2. For 4? No thanks. 4/2s for 4 are by far my most hated stats casting cost combination because they die to just everything. But getting Menace does save them a little bit. That's kind of okay. I don't know, though, this still just feels kind of weak to me. Maybe if you're attempting to go wide with the servos, which we've talked about ad nauseum so far, this could be okay. But really, this just feels very cuttable to me at 4 mana. It's just a little bit too much. Maybe 3 mana, but I think a 3 mana 4/2 might be maybe too good, but probably not. Not if you throw it in at uncommon, I think. Yeah, I'm going to go with a C-. I'm not really looking to play Maulfist Squad very much. Up next is Midnight Oil. This is a weird one. 2 black for an enchantment at rare. Midnight Oil enters the battlefield with 7 hour counters on it. At the beginning of your draw step, draw an extra card. And remove 2 hour counters from Midnight Oil. Your maximum hand size is equal to the number of hour counters on Midnight Oil. Whenever you discard a card, you lose 1 life. This does not seem okay. Let's say we cast this on turn 4 and we've curved out. The next turn we're going to have 5 cards in hand with a hand size of 5. Cool, that works out. We don't have to discard. If you don't play 2 cards, you are discarding a card next turn when your hand size goes down to 3. And then 1. And then you're in top deck mode, drawing 2 cards, having to play them because you have a hand size of 0. Boy, I hope that you are really far ahead and about to win the game. Because otherwise, you are just out of combat tricks. You are out of the ability to respond to anything within hand. I'm out. Solid F- for me. I just see no way to use this to any advantage. I don't want to be dealing with Midnight Oil. F-. Up next is Mind Rot. Mind Rot is 2 and a black for a sorcery rate common. Target player discards 2 cards. I've only been reviewing sets for 2 years, but I feel like I've reviewed Mind Rot a dozen times. As always, this card is main deckable in Sealed as a 23rd card and a desperate playable in Draft. As long as your draft didn't go off the rails, though, this should probably be in your sideboard a large amount of the time. D+, it's just not a great card, and if this format's fast, it's gonna even drop out of there. D+, Mind Rot. You guys should know this unless you're brand new, in which case, hey, this is Mind Rot. Mind Rot, new players, Mind Rot, D+. Up next is Morbid Curiosity. Morbid Curiosity is 1 black for a sorcery at uncommon. As an additional cost to cast Morbid Curiosity, sacrifice an artifact or creature. What do you get for that? Well, you get to draw cards equal to the converted mana cost of the sacrificed permanent. I'm pretty out on this as well. If this was instant, it could maybe be okay-ish, since you could sack something in response to removal or unfavorable blocks or something like that. But at sorcery speed, this is just really hard to pull off. This is very similar to a card called Life's Legacy, which was in M15, which was 1 and a green, sack a creature, and you got to draw cards equal to its power. This is an artifact or a creature, so you could sack an artifact that's not doing anything for you and get 3 or 4 cards out of it, but just no. Sorcery speed, double black, having to sacrifice something. There simply being better ways of drawing cards in this format. I'm out. Totally out. Pure F. Well, that's a lot of Fs in a row. Let's see what we have next. We have Night Market Lookout. Night Market Lookout is a single black mana for a creature human rogue at common. It's a 1/1. This doesn't sound like it's going to go good. Whenever Night Market Lookout becomes tapped, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. Another trap card, I think. It crews vehicles, I guess, and pings an opponent, gains you a life, but every single other creature in the entire format crews a vehicle, and most of them can actually do something like attack or block. You should never be playing this. It's just so incredibly weak and not worth a card. It dies to everything. Just blah. Another F. Pure, solid, unadulterated F. Alright, let's break the F streak. Noxious Gearhulk. We've got the black Gearhulk, 4 black artifact creature construct at Mythic, 5/4 menace. When Noxious Gearhulk enters the battlefield, you may, if you want to, destroy another target creature. If a creature is destroyed this way, you gain life equal to its toughness. This is just a classic bomb. It's a 5/4 menace for 6 mana, kills a creature, gains you some life. It is a snap first pick. You are never passing this. Pick it now. A+. Absolute A+. The only way this could drop is if the format is, as some people predict, blisteringly fast. You all know that I'm not one of those people, though. A+, Noxious Gearhulk. Pick it now. Up next is Ovalchase Daredevil, 3 and a black for a creature human pilot at uncommon. She's a 4/2. And she says, whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may return Ovalchase Daredevil from your graveyard to your hand. Yeah, if this was Battlefield, it would be, well, A, probably costing more, but really, really solid nonetheless. Graveyard to hand, not my favorite thing to happen. I also don't really like 4/2s for 4. They die to everything. You know, this one coming back is nice, but it's so slow. You still have to pay the 4 mana. It could be okay with vehicles, I guess, as the flavor would suggest, because she does have the high power, so she crews basically everything by herself. I don't know, though. I feel like there's just better creatures out there, and while I don't feel like the format will be blisteringly fast, I don't feel like it's going to be slow enough to be recurring a 4-mana 4/2. Not really what I'm looking for. I'm going to start with cutting her relatively regularly at a C-. Up next is Prakata Club Security. Prakata Club Security is a 3 and a black creature, Aetherborn Warrior. It's a 3/4, and that's the end of the story. It's a 3/4 for 4 vanilla, pure and utter filler creature. It's the definition of a C. You'll play it when you have it, and you have nothing better, and you'll be fine with it, and you'll cut it when you have better things, and you'll be fine with it. Pure, prototypical vanilla C. Up next is Rush of Vitality. Rush of Vitality is 1 and a black for an instant at common. Target creature gets +1/+0 and gains lifelink and indestructible until end of turn. Sure, I guess. It's not super exciting, but it is still a fine enough combat trick. It'll work as a perfectly serviceable one. It'll let you kill a creature off, an attacker or a blocker without trading, with the added benefit of gaining some life. It'll dodge some forms of removal. It seems like your usual combat trick that you'll run if you have a spot, and not if you don't. So solid C. C for combat trick. Let's take a look at another combat trick, Subtle Strike. Subtle Strike is 1 and a black for an instant at common. Choose one or both. Target creature gets -1/-1 until end of turn, and or put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. This is also fine, just like Rush of Vitality, though I do think it's much better than Rush of Vitality. It's more versatile, functions as removal, it functions as pump, except the pump is a permanent counter, which is really nice. It's really just a better borrowed Malevolence from Eldritch Moon. It's cheaper to cast, the counter stays on, which means that you can kill an X1 or drop a 3/3 from a 2/2 and have your 3/3 kill it, and put the counter on the 3/3 or anything else. You know, you've got a flyer kicking around too. Throw the counter on that. It doesn't even have to be something that's involved in the combat or the transaction that's happening. Very versatile. I like it quite a bit. It's still a combat trick. The -1/-1 isn't enough for me to say it's truly removal. It can function as that. So I'm going to go C+ on this. Not much higher, but I'm going to play probably every copy that I have. Next up is Syndicate Trafficker. Syndicate Trafficker is 1 and a black for a creature, Aetherborn Rogue at rare. It's a 3/1. You can pay 1 generic mana and sacrifice an artifact. If you do, you put +1/+1 counter on Syndicate Trafficker. It also gains indestructible until end of turn. This seems relatively decent, but you do obviously need to be in the preferred black artifact heavy deck, which we've talked about, I'm thinking is probably black-white with Fabricate. As long as you are, you get a 3/1 for 2, which we've talked about, I'm a fan of, but more than that, it gets to grow and attack with impunity. It gets to dodge removal and just generally live way, 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 way longer than any 3/1 should ever be allowed to do, while getting bigger, while becoming a 4/2, 5/3, 6/4, etc. I think it's a first pick build around, but not quite bomb status, because it absolutely does take time and deck building to really get to the sort of game ender form of it. So I'm gonna pop this in at a B, not much higher, because it does start out as a 3/1 for 2, which is for me a C+. But you can hopefully get there with this. So I'm gonna go with a B. I really want to give this a try. Next up is Thriving Rats. Thriving Rats is 1 and a black for a creature, rat at common. It's a 1/2. When Thriving Rats enters the battlefield, you get 2 energy. Whenever Thriving Rats attacks, you may pay 2 energy. If you do, put a +1/+1 counter on it. A 1/2 for 2, no thanks. It attacks as a 2/3 if you spend the 2 energy on it, which puts it into 2/3 for 3 with haste, I guess, status, which is alright. But then what? Then it's a 2/3. Then you have to spend more energy that you get from somewhere and attack, at which point we're probably talking, if we're being reasonable, turn 4, turn 5, at which point it's a 3/4? Okay. It doesn't seem great. It seems like a pure 23rd card. Like, you can play it, but I think there are many, many times where you should cut it. So C? It just doesn't seem good to me. I've seen a lot of people give this like C+, or just say, oh, it's so good. It's going to go 2-3 and then 3-4 and then 4-5, and it's not. It's really not. Straight up C, just a C. Up next is Tidy Conclusion. Tidy Conclusion is 3 black for an instant, very important part here. At common, destroy target creature. You gain 1 life for each artifact you control. I mean, it's costly at 5 mana, but that's how black removal works, especially at common. We don't get murder at common. We don't get Doomblade at common. It's just how it costs these days. It's not splashable because of the black, but if you are black, you're playing this card every single time. It's unconditional, instant speed removal, and that's just fantastic. The artifact life gain clause is a flat-out non-entity in considering if this card's good or not or what the grade should be. It's a cool bonus, but it has 0 impact on the rating of this card. If I get 0 life, cool. If I get 27 life, cool. Doesn't change this card. I'll pick it relatively highly. Maybe first pick in some packs. Probably not, but maybe. I'm really happy to just give this a solid B. Seems like just a fantastic card and possibly just the best black common. Underhanded Designs is our second last black card, 1 and a black for an enchantment at uncommon. Whenever an artifact enters the battlefield under your control, you may pay 1 generic mana. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life, and you gain 1 life. Pay 1 and a black, and sacrifice Underhanded Designs. Destroy target creature. Activate this ability only if you control 2 or more artifacts. This seems decent enough, I think. I don't think it'll be in any way abnormal to not have a handful of artifacts, especially if you're Black-White Fabricate or something like that. And if you're looking to do it, it should be relatively easy. As a result, you should be able to gain some life off this and then use it like a Sinister Concoction from Shadows of Innistrad. Costing 2 instead of 1 probably makes this a little less good. Sinister Concoction was 1, but it also doesn't have all of the costs that Concoction had. You don't have to discard a card or sack a creature or anything like that. I think this is fine, and I'm willing to start this at a B-. Obviously, if you are lacking on artifacts, you're going to have to consider whether or not you should even be playing this, but in general, and especially in most black decks, I think this is a B-. Our final black card is Weaponcraft Enthusiast. Weaponcraft Enthusiast is 2 and a black for a creature, Aetherborn Artificer at uncommon. It's an 0/1, but it has Fabricate 2. It's a 2/3 for 3, which, that's pure filler. An 0/1 and 2 1/1s, that's a bit better. If you can abuse that with an Anthem effect, the Servo Lord, use them as a way to enable your Artifact Matters creatures, but at that point we are talking turn 3. Hopefully you cast them on turn 2, I guess, but otherwise it's going to take some time. I don't know. I'd pick it up once I know that I'm headed that way. I wouldn't really ever take this with the intent of playing it if I weren't headed that way already. So, seems like a C to me. Be willing to cut it in places where it is not appropriate, and make sure that you are playing it in those kind of Artifact Matters decks or the wide decks. So, C for me. So that's going to wrap it up for black. Man, black seems way better than blue. There are some horrible cards. I don't think I've ever seen this many Fs in one color in a set before, but luckily a lot of them are kind of sequestered into the rare slot, so you won't see them too often. But there's just so much good stuff. There are some awesome rares, some awesome creatures, some powerful removal. I'm excited to play black. I think black's going to be pretty solid, and boy, do I want to pair it with white to go black-white. Let me know what you're thinking of black so far in Kaladesh in the comments down below. What's your favorite card? What's your most hated card? What do you disagree with, etc.? Let me know down below. As always, if you do want to support me in future set reviews and product openings and Spiky Saturdays, Wacky Wednesday, Top 10 Thursday, Crack-A-Pack Tuesdays, all of the various weekly video series that I do each and every week, you can head on over to patreon.com/themanaleak and support me there. $1, $1,000. I greatly appreciate every single backer regardless. As always, if you have any questions, comments, or suggestions, you can find me at Twitter at @themanaleak, facebook.com/themanaleak, and twitch.tv/themanaleak. You found me here on YouTube. Make use of that comment section down below. Click that thumbs up icon if you enjoy the content, and click subscribe if you want to see more. Otherwise, I will see you all tomorrow for the red set review.